Hi, everyone. Welcome to CANiVISION, where we talk about lifestyle, business, and medical topics with some of the leaders here in the Illinois cannabis industry. CANiVISION is a decentralized broadcasting network for the cannabis industry, and we are here representing Illinois for the Midwest region.
We're your hosts, Hush Chicago. My name is Kay.
And I'm Vanessa.
And today we're going to be discussing how to completely shift your mindset and how to set yourself up for success. And today, seated at the Hush Circle is none other than the Gritmaker himself, James Gordon. Welcome, James.
Yes.
Hey, how are you doing, guys?
Good.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you
It's
very
great
much for
having
welcoming
you.
me.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. So just a little bit more info on James. James is an entrepreneur. He's a mental health advocate. He's a travel enthusiast and cannabis activist, to say the least. He's co-owner of a large billing company that caters to substance abuse and mental health treatment facilities. He's helped develop multiple cannabis testing labs, and he's recently launched the cannabis tourism company called Shy High Tours. So welcome again.
Yes.
We're so happy that you're here. Thank you. We appreciate you. And we
Yes.
know that you are living right now in between Florida and Chicago. So
Yes. And
you're
he flew
here.
down here, you guys.
Yes.
He flew down here specifically for our recording and for other things. But I would like to say, it was for us.
Absolutely. I can't be mad of saying I reside in Florida, but also coming to Chicago, even though I have to bring my jacket with me. It
Yeah.
is definitely a pleasurable time to be in the city. Looking forward.
Awesome. Well, let's kick it off. We like to ask all of our guests what their relationship and what's your relationship with cannabis?
Man, I would say that my romance with cannabis began probably as young as 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
I can recall just, being that young Snoopy individual, just prying into my brother's business. And then all of a sudden, smelling those strange aromas. And, unfortunately, but fortunately, he allowed me to partake. And, that just sparked off a relationship with cannabis that, when people are young and you're experimenting with such a plant that can be a great resource for you, but can also be a deterrent for you. If you don't have proper dosage in mind, you don't know how to use it properly. And that was pretty much myself when I began my relationship with cannabis. So
Yeah.
my relationship with cannabis, had a beginning at a young age. It had a moment in time where it was confusing for me, probably led me into negative lifestyles, but then it began to birth an opportunity for me to learn more about it in a conscious way and just understand how to use it properly.
Yeah. I think that's awesome that your brother was able to do that with you and that was your first time, because I think, like with me, my first time was with a group of my friends, but having a brother there that you trust, getting high for the first time, I think, that's pretty awesome. And thank you for also opening up and letting us know your age, because it's real.
Most people don't.
A lot of
Yeah.
people don't like saying how old they were. Like, just let's keep it real. We were young. I was 14, 15 when I first started. So, so do you think your relationship with cannabis is the same today as it was back then?
Yeah, I'd say my relationship with cannabis has totally matured. Yeah, there was times with, relationship with cannabis and included when it was blunts and
Yeah.
spliffs, and those was the conversation. I'm an 80s baby, so that was the terms that we used back then. It was something that was done multiple times a day in really an unhealthy fashion, which then left you just not motivated to move forward in your lifestyles. Fast forward today, I'm a responsible user. I'm able to use daily by just adding proper dosage to my usage. And by doing that and just the forms of dosages, I think is important as well. Too much flour sometimes can be an issue. Too much concentrates could be an issue. But I think the right kind of dosage throughout the right periods of time is what I've grown to as far as my maturity with cannabis now.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you talked about flour and concentrators as the top two that you prefer to enjoy cannabis?
Yeah, ironically enough, if I'm more so in vacation mode, more so trying to relax my mind, flower seems to do it for me. But I'm a business person. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm always on the go, and I find that concentrates is easier. You know, being able to have a vape pen per se in between meetings, especially if they get stressful, is going to be a lot easier than trying to roll something up. So that's where I play my role as far as whether I'm going to go for flower or concentrates, depending if I'm on business time or R&R.
Nice. Okay, well, we have so much to talk about today, and
Yeah.
you have such a great and inspiring story. And on your website, you talk about being in prison, right, and how that really changed your life. So, but we wanted to kind of start before that. Like, tell us what life was like before prison, during, and after, and any events that may have happened to lead you to where you are now.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, you know, once again, that's like I said, I'm an 80s baby. So you figure late 80s, early 90s, you know, was when I was at my most confused state. You know, when I really thought that street life was just the way to be, you know.
Where were you
name it.
residing?
Brooklyn, New
then?
York. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
Brooklyn,
helps
New York.
to set the setting. Okay.
Yeah,
That's great.
By way of Brooklyn, New York. So imagine, you know, big city, just really entrapped with the pursuits of city living and going after the negativities of that particular lifestyle. That was me, honestly, for about 12, 15 years of my life. I actually pursued those lost causes of drug selling and frivolous things that associated with that. I got into small little stints of problems, but nothing too big until one day I got myself into a situation that did land me into a 3.5-year prison stint in federal prison. And, you know, to be very honest with you, I thought it was going to be one of those opportunities where I was just going to stand it on my head, relax, think about other opportunities of crime and other things like that, and not really take this prison situation that serious.
So that was your mindset going into
That
it.
was
You're
my
like, I
mindset.
can do
Yeah.
this, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm gonna come back out and do the same thing.
Come
Yeah.
back out, pretty much do the same thing, you know,
Yeah.
because every time I got into little problems, I was able to get myself out of it, come back and pretty much be the same individual with the same issues. This particular prison stint, this particular issue I got myself in was a tad bit different. It was really different because it was around a time when my parents started to get a little older. They really started to like seek ways of just trying to retirement and trying to just live life. But I was a stress factor, and my brothers and everybody else was a stress factor in their life. But one day, my mother and father, they came to visit me while I was in that prison sentence. And when they came to visit me, I noticed quickly my father, he was probably at least 20 to 30 pounds lighter than I'm used to seeing him, and had the frail look of sickness. And, you know, wasn't 2 minutes into our meeting, our visit, that I found out he was dying of cancer. And severely dying of cancer, like stage 4. And, you know, I was faced with a very serious situation, a situation where I'm in prison, I'm in a visiting room, and my father's telling me something as intimate as he's losing his life.
Yeah.
And he's asking me to change before that life is over. Being faced with a decision like that, you know, and once again, just to back up on the environment of prison, just to put you in that mindset, there is no hugging, there is no time being spent to console such a situation.
Wow.
I have to just deal with it, you know?
That's hard.
It's hard.
That is hard when you haven't seen your parent and then facing that news. Like all you want to do is just hug them and you have all these guards watching you and you can't, huh? That's
So
hard.
I was faced with that serious situation right there. And when he asked me, he had just one declaration: change. He wanted to see me become something different. He had a vision of me from the time I was a young boy. I just went on the wrong path, and he wanted to see me get back on that correct path. That was a speech that he gave countless times throughout my troubles. This time I heard him though, you know, because honestly, it was going to be the last time I was going to hear him. So I heard it loud and clear. I went back to that prison cell, pretty much with a mindset of I need to begin change.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, probably about 2 weeks after that visit, my father did pass away. But what I think it did for me was cement the fact that I want to be able to live up to what I promised him. I want to be able to make a certain kind of change for my life that is significant and could make my mother proud, who's left on this earth. So once I got out of prison in 2007, it became my passion just to become something different, just to go after life differently. And that passion began to raise the entrepreneurial in me. I think if you're a person who's selling drugs on the street, you have a bit of entrepreneurialism in you, just in the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
But I got formal training on my entrepreneurialism, just by reaching for online classes, different ways to just learn, but also networking and trying to network with individuals that knew more than me, that were in positions that I wanted to be in. And by doing that, it just landed me into great opportunities, and opportunities that started off into a small billing company opportunity. Ironically, I linked up with a team of individuals that wanted to start a medical billing company. But you know, when you look in the newspaper, there's 1,000,001 medical billing companies. So you begin to wonder, is this going to be a company that's going to make a difference and it's going to push through? And even though we started off meager, and when I say meager, we began our business in a 2-bedroom apartment, and the office was actually in a garage setting. So it was a very tight moment. It was myself and 2 other individuals as we began to start this medical billing opportunity, but with tenacity, with grit, with the ability to just stay forward on the goal, we were able to transform and turn that 2-bedroom apartment office into a 10,000 square foot office setting.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
with over
amazing.
100 employees and over 200 different accounts across the nation. Awesome. So we were able to really raise the bar and turn a medical billing company that is most times 1 in a million, like there's millions of them, but we were able to find a certain niche, and that was behavioral health care. And by finding that niche, by helping behavioral health care providers and hospital systems gain back money from insurance carriers, we were able to really hit a big success point.
Wow. That's so great to hear how you completely changed your life around after you got out of prison and how it's possible. I think one thing I kind of want to come back to when you kind of went back to your cell after seeing your father, right? And you were like, okay, I need to change. You wanted to completely change your mindset. Was there a particular book that you were reading in prison where you're like, this right here is like completely changing my mindset, and like you hold dear to your heart?
Yeah. I would say 2 of them is probably well known in prison. Of course, I read the Bible. I think reading the Bible, whether you're a spiritual person, whether you're really into Christ hard or not, I think reading the Bible is a way to seek a certain peace of mind, and begin to just think about life in a bigger way. So reading the Bible was something that was important for me, but also reading something called the 48 Laws of Power. I think by being able to read the 48 Laws of Power, I quickly began to learn about the directions I was moving incorrectly in, certain hands that I was showing unnecessarily, and just certain attitudes and certain ways I was being that was never going to ever put me in a position of power. So by reading books like 48 Laws of Power, I began to know that your character, how you are as a person, and just how you perceive yourself in the room is going to make a difference between success or failure at times.
Wow, that's
Side
wonderful.
question, have you read the 50th Law?
I haven't read the 50th Law yet.
It's good.
I haven't read that yet.
Yeah.
Need to get into that.
50 Cent and Robert Greene.
Need to get into that.
It's good.
Awesome.
And it's also nice because you can get the leather edition and it looks like a Bible.
Yeah,
Oh,
I need to
you
definitely
sold- you
follow
sold it.
up
You
on
sold
that.
them.
Gold foil embossing. Yeah.
Need to follow up on that. For me, the
Done.
48 Laws of Power, I'd say the number one law that I had to learn was never outshine the master. And pretty much that stands power because, when you're in certain meetings, high-level meetings, and you're with a CEO of a hospital system, being too boastful, being too cocky about your services and what you can do, making him seem little,
Yeah.
is never going to prove valuable for you. You actually probably lose that opportunity by outshining him. You know, sometimes it's better to sit back, fall back, and listen more.
That's great. That's a great advice.
Yes.
So right after you got out of prison, what obstacles did you face? Because we all know that, you know, there's little opportunity for people that come out of prison, like getting a job. And obviously you're just like, I don't want to look for a job. I'm starting my own business, right? But what obstacles did you come across after prison?
Got you. Obstacles I came across was trying to be normalized, to be honest with you. Everything was good when you saw me until you read my record, and then all of a sudden attitudes changed. So I noticed that I was just pushed into small jobs, small opportunities because of my record. My big level thinking just felt like it was never going to become accomplished if I deal with society's way of wanting to treat me. Examples given, you know, even though I applied for higher level positions when I got out of prison, just because I felt like I was experienced enough for those positions, what I ended up doing at night was delivering newspapers to different condos throughout South Florida because that's who would hire me.
Right.
You know, I ended up working at a tile store, putting tiles in the back room because that's who would hire someone coming out of prison.
Right.
So I realized quickly that if I'm going to really accomplish the goals that I set forth in my mind, I can't really follow society's way of trying to do it. I have to move out of the box. I have to think out of the box. And more so, I have to network with people that can help me do it.
Love that.
Yep. Sorry.
I was like, where are we now? So I want to ask you, because you are the Gritmaker, right? What does grit mean to you? To you, James Gordon?
Yes. For me, being able to have grit is having perseverance, having the ability to take on challenges, having the ability to come back from failures, having the ability to look at failure in the face and say, I can face this, I can get over this, and I can reach success. I think that, first of all, we all make mistakes. We all go through issues. We all face downfalls. I think that without having that particular grit that I just mentioned, trying to reach the point of success over those failures becomes that much more difficult. So for me, having that grit is having the ability to come back from failures and look it in the face and be proud.
Awesome. So now that you're in the cannabis industry, why do you think grit is necessary, especially in this industry that we're in?
Yeah, well, I think no matter what state you're in, that's going recreational or even it's a medicinal and you're getting involved in the cannabis space, I think from even the applications, it's going to take a certain grit in order to want to say, I'm going to actually stick to this, or I'm going to actually invest in the money that it's going to take to actually get someone to fill this out properly for me. So I think it's going to take the grit mindset of knowing I'm going to commit to this. That's another part of grit, saying I'm going to commit to something, I'm not going to stop until it's there. I think it also takes grit for the cannabis industry because it's an uphill battle. Especially if you're an African-American, Latino, it becomes even extra harder. You know, you want to rely on social equity opportunities as much as you want to, but then you begin to realize either it's just a political catchword for a lot of states, or it's something that they just don't follow through on in enough time. So you begin to realize if I'm really going to be in the cannabis industry, I definitely have to have the grit it's going to take to just get the doors open.
Yeah, awesome.
Before we go into what you're doing now in cannabis, I kind of want to back up again and go back to, mindset, right? And you read books while you were in prison. You read the Bible. You read 48 Laws of Power. But someone who might not even know what book to pick up, or like someone who decides, okay, I want to change, but then how? What first steps do I need to take? How do I wake up tomorrow and start that change? What did you do? And then what kind of advice, I guess, that you would give to someone who's just like, where do I even begin?
Absolutely. I would say specifically if you're coming out of a situation similar to mine, I think number one thing is you have to change everything about yourself. And when I say that, it goes from changing the people you're around deliberately. It begins with that. Most times, majority of times when you reach legal problems or problems, it dealt with people you were associated with.
Yeah.
It was rarely just you were by yourself and you committed these actions or you got involved with problems. So I think changing the people you're around is mega important. Changing the things you think about, the things that you're around is important. That means if you're a person that always watched television a lot, always watched sitcoms and things like that, push yourself to watch PBS. Push yourself to watch educational, since TV's your thing, but push yourself to watch things that's educational. That's gonna reach your particular goal. So once again, another piece of change is changing certain habits about yourself. If you've had bad habits when you were in your situation, coming out of it, things like excessive drinking, things like cigarettes, certain little habits that can really control how you think. Too much of anything will have you thinking negatively or have you spending too much time on idleness, per se. So I think that the most important thing that I did in the very beginning of my stages was change those particular things, the people I'm around, the habits I commit to, and just the way I'm thinking. Another important thing I did was began to be around people that are better than me, people that are reaching the goals that I'm trying to reach. They actually reach them and accomplish them. I think another problem that individuals in my situation they've is pride. The pride to say, I purposely want to be around people where I look like I'm the king. I look like I'm the man. But if you only know so much of something, you're not going to become a powerhouse. So I think being around people that you're aspiring to be like is going to be one of the number one ways for you to reach those particular heights, because you're around greatness every day. It just makes you want to reach towards that. Right. So changing the people you're around is a big thing. So those are the small things I would try to change that don't cost money. It just costs your time, your energy, and your discipline to want to change your mindset around.
And it's an investment in yourself.
And it's a total investment in yourself.
And change takes time. So something to really think about. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yep. Yeah. Baby steps every day, just something new. Or like you said, if you like watching TV, put something educational on and 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yep.
And so you've given some really great advice, especially those people who are struggling right now, who have came out of prison and, because you could have gone on a whole nother route, right? You could have been like, well, society doesn't want me to succeed, so I'm just going to pick up this bottle and start chugging and, numb my feelings, and I don't want to think about anything. But the way that you shifted your mindset and just the advice that you're giving now, like, this is what's needed. We need more people like you speaking out and really talking about, the struggles that are going on when you're in and out of prison.
Absolutely. And to touch on what Kay said, 'cause I think it's very important, time. My change is here, it's definite, but my change actually took over 10 years to actually manifest. So those things take time. I always want to send that message that please don't get frustrated and believe that change is not happening because you're only a year in.
Right.
You're going to have to commit to that change, commit to it until one day people around you see it differently.
Yeah.
An example of that for me, I committed to my change, just not looking backwards and looking forward until one day, maybe about a couple years ago, my mother pulled me to the side. She had no reason at all to say it. It was unprovoked. She looked at me, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "I am proud of you."
Oh.
And that was genuine.
Yeah.
And that's something that she had to see from I got out of prison to 10, 12 years later to where she felt, I'm proud of you. You really made a change. So I want to say to those that are trying to change or looking to make that change, it's going to take time to do it. But be around people that love you or see greatness around you and let them see that change happening. Because what they're going to do one day is announce that they see it. And it's going to make you feel proud, feel great, and keep striving for that change even more.
Oh, I love that. okay, one more question, and I guess one more advice too, is you said it takes time, and it's taking you 10 years, right, to really start mastering your work. So along those years, you had setbacks, right, and failures. And how did you overcome it? Like, what was one of the things that you're like, okay, if I have the setback, this is what I'm going to do to continue going?
Got you. Well, I would say for me personally, what I did is every time I reached any type of financial opportunity, I wasn't afraid to seek therapy. I think that's another issue that, me as a representation of African American men, I think a lot of men in my shoes, especially coming from a prison situation, just don't feel like therapy is going to be something that they're going to be able to take advantage of, something that they want to tell their friends or family member that they're doing, or it seems like a sign of weakness. For me, I quickly realized that therapy is going to be a great way for me to understand myself. There's a reason why I ended up in the situations I ended up in, even though I have two loving parents, even though, I'm raised in a loving household, but still I went so left. Therapy should be involved with something like that. So I was able to look in the mirror and admit that to myself. So whenever I had challenges throughout those 10 years of growth, I wasn't scared to dial that phone and say, hey, can I come in for this visit? And actually begin to have that conversation that can make me leave out of the room feeling more confident about my task, feeling that failures are just part of life, and then moving forward.
Yeah, it's that mental health. Mental health is key, especially for men. Men don't like talking about, seeking help and talking about, their feelings and their issues that they're having. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And I would say for men, for men or women, for individuals, period, who let's say therapy is something they can't afford. There's a library around your block, and libraries have books galore on just psychology, mental health. YouTube is free, pretty much for everyone, and you can easily find different topics about mental health that can help you seek solutions. And then lastly, there's meditation.
Yes.
I meditate actually twice a day. Something I've done for about 1.5 years now, and it's helped me see a lot of difference. It's helped me seek a lot of peace of mind whenever tough times come throughout the day. So that's something that doesn't cost a thing, but just takes discipline to want to commit to.
That's awesome. Wow, James, you've given so many bombs here today.
Yeah, I think this is a very valuable interview, and there's a lot of components and elements that make up who you are and why you've been so successful, right? But I think the things that you mentioned are pretty simple, not easy, but pretty simple, like making a conscious decision that you're going to change is the first step. Changing your environment, being mindful of your habits and deciding to change them. And the things that you've been living with all your life that you have never addressed or refused to address, and then just making that decisive moment that I'm doing something about this and seeking help when necessary, right? And it's just a constant thing that you do daily, and it's a must thing that you do daily, right? And I think a lot of people need to hear that there's the work that you do, the business, the admin stuff, the not so fun side of business, but then there's that inner work that you got to do every single day. And I think people really need to hear that, especially now with like our whole situation with COVID and people being in an unstable environment, unstable state of mind. I think this is really helpful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, so now we're gonna fast forward.
Now talk about business.
Yeah. So now we're gonna fast forward. You talked about having your billing company, and now you're into the cannabis industry. And so tell us a little more about Shy High Tours and how that became, what it became.
Got you. So Shy High Tours really evolved from the mindset of when I knew I wanted to really concentrate on two things within the cannabis industry. I really felt that there's the obvious about the cannabis industry, a great way to make money. This is the new gold mine. This is the new rush. But for me, I really thought this can be a way for me to provide high-level education, because so many people don't know about cannabis except for rolling it up, smoking it, go to sleep or go party, and that's it. So I think it's important for me to want to say I want to be an educator. Second thing is I want to do my part in helping to erase the stigma that's associated with cannabis use. I think that even though there are millions of users and there's billions of dollars being made off of it, there's still individuals who have a stigmatic thought about us. You know, we're lazy, we're not fruitful in our business identities, we're not athletic. Slews of different stigmas that exist that I think that Shy High Tours, a tour bus company that's highly educational, can really help to dispel those particular stigmas that exist.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so tell us a little more about, as a tourist, what their experience would be going into one of Shy High Tours.
One of those tours.
One of the tours.
So yeah, when you're taking one of our tours, immediately one thing is going to be felt that this is so much less of like a party bus that was probably seen on a lot of California or West Coast cannabis-related tours. And this is more of a true educational museum kind of feel. So, you know, someone who would take one of our tours would be able to experience things that exist in Chicago forever and blending that in with the world of cannabis. Example being, one of our tours is a jazz and culture tour in which we're blending the history of jazz that is all throughout the city of Chicago, but infusing that with the history that it has with cannabis. You know, there is a long-standing history that cannabis and jazz and the city of Chicago has together, and our tours are going to help explain that. Then there's our beer, bud, and bite tour. I mean, that just says it all right there. Being able to taste some of Chicago's best breweries, added with some of Chicago's best food, but also blending that in with the new cannabis scene. So it's tours like that that will help be able to give a dual experience of Chicago's usual greatness, but blending it in with the new cannabis industry.
Yeah, I love that, especially jazz, because, you know, that's such a huge history here in Chicago. So blending the two together, I think that's an awesome tour already.
I mean, think about it. Imagine being able to feel the wonderfuls of highs as you're driving by Louis Armstrong's home and getting some information and history about it. Those are the kind of experiences that we were providing on our tours.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Louis Armstrong was a big cannabis advocate. And, right? And so he had one of his songs. What song was that? That was about cannabis.
She threw me. I'm trying to remember it as you said. I'm like, whoa. How could the tour guide guy not know that?
No, I had it in the tip of my mouth and I lost it too. Well, there's a song out there.
There's a song out
there. There's a song. And Louis Armstrong was a big cannabis advocate. And there was lots of songs that he made that represented him and his love for cannabis.
Yeah,
so.
from day one, Louis Armstrong, great jazz influencer, but also a heavy cannabis user. It was to the point where there was a joke, but not a joke, where actually he put a satch of weed inside President Nixon's bag, in which then Nixon actually got on the plane, the Air Force One with it, got it through, and it was something for Louis Armstrong to have a great long story on about it.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I haven't heard of that.
There's certain historical facts like that we'll
awesome.
present on our tour that I think will be a fun experience.
Yeah, okay.
Also, I see that there's some luxury vehicles that are some options for the tours.
Yeah, for us, you know, just so we have three pillars for our business, for our tours. You know, education, entertainment, and comfort. And being able to educate individuals on the cannabis industry is big for us. Doing it in an entertaining way, but also in comfort. So yes, we do have Mercedes Sprinters, Mercedes-Benz Sprinters as our vehicles, and also Cadillac Escalades.
Nice.
Okay, we fancy with it.
We fancy.
Yeah.
I like that though, because I feel
and style.
because I feel like, you know, the older I get, I'm like, it's all about comfort. Like even like with my shoes, like I'm not gonna wear these really high heels anymore because I want to be comfortable.
Yes, I agree.
So with you know, what really stands you apart from all the other cannabis tourism companies out there?
I think it's those two pieces. The two pieces of really being an educator first. You know, if we had to identify our business, it's educators. And doing so with the mission of erasing the stigma. I think by having those two mindsets, what's going to set us apart immediately is the way we market ourselves,
Yeah.
the way we brand ourselves, and also the way we deliver our tours. We'll all have that mindset together. And I think what that will do is immediately set us apart.
Yeah. And I think what you touched on in the beginning too about how this is not a party bus, because I think when people think of cannabis tourism, they automatically think like, oh yeah, we're going to get to smoke in the bus.
Yep.
We're going to get super high. And it's like, no, like you said, education is huge. And, you know, when we were kids, when we first started smoking, yeah, it was all about, you know, getting high because we weren't educated
Yes.
on what we were smoking, why we were smoking, why we were feeling a certain way, right? And also now there's just a lot more than we ever had, right?
More potency too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and two, for those who are just the canna curious, right? Who want to know more, who want to kind of dabble into cannabis, but don't even know where to start. And they don't even know the difference between CBD versus THC. So I think you nailed it.
These tours help them to learn more.
Yeah, exactly. So
Definitely.
we definitely need that here.
And I think you said it. Most people, when they hear about Shy High Tours, immediately think it's a party bus. They wonder that. That's our job, to help dispel that particular stigma.
Yeah.
Because people think that only because that's a stigmatic thought, you know? Because if you go on our website, I think by the third line, you no longer think party. You think, okay, these guys plan on educating people who know very little about cannabis and celebrating with the connoisseurs.
Awesome.
Well, we can talk forever
Yeah.
with you,
Seriously.
but we are short on time, and we want to ask you one last question
Absolutely.
before we wrap up. So you've already given us a lot of nuggets of wisdom throughout this whole episode here. But what advice would you give to other startup entrepreneurs, or maybe people who are thinking of starting a business in the cannabis space? What kind of advice would you give them?
Got you. Advice in the cannabis space, hardcore research. Do a lot of research in the area of the space you want to enter, especially if that area is going to devote a lot of your time and a lot of your financial resources. Really do research first and don't just fly with the wind or fly with something you've heard by your neighbor or third party. Really investigate. Next step I'm really going to say is work with a really good legal team. I think that working with the right attorney is going to make a difference between a lot of pitfalls you can make in the beginning, a lot of unnecessary expenditures that you'd make. The right attorney that has the right cannabis knowledge, I think is going to really lead you in the right steps and right directions. Another important thing I think is networking. One of the number one reasons why I was able to get myself out of a prison mindset and into an entrepreneur big business mindset was the people I hung around, the people I decided to be around constantly and every day. So I think those that want to enter the cannabis industry, network more. Network with as little as bud tenders down to owners of or managers of the small dispensaries if you can. Because all of that knowledge and all of that networking is going to help build up the knowledge and confidence you need to keep going during those grit needed moments.
Wow. Another bomb. I like it. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
James,
you.
for being our guest today. We really enjoyed our conversation, and I think the audience has a lot of takeaways that I feel like this show is going to be rewatched like several times by everyone. But so tell the audience what you have going on with Shy High Tours and where they can find you.
So our tours are now up and operational. To learn more about our tours, you can go to shyhightours.com. For me, to learn more about myself, where I'll be speaking at next, and just what I'm doing to continuously manifest change, you can find me at thegritmaker.com. And I'm on IG at Gritmaker as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And check us out on our next episode.
Shout out to CANiVISION Midwest, CANiVISION Global, CANiVISION California, all the CANiVISIONs out there. We love you. Shout out to High Key Creative.
Rico!
Shout out Rico for connecting us.
Yeah.
And please follow us on Instagram at Hush Chicago. That's Hush_Chicago and CANiVISION.il. So stay tuned for the next episode of the Hush Circle.
Bye, guys.